Okay, so when working with Alclad, two things to remember. One is that your surface has to be perfectly smooth. Alclad will actually magnify any surface defects you've got, any bad panel lines, any bad glue marks, anything else like that, tenfold. So you need to make sure that all your surfaces are fine first. There's a lot of debate about obviously painting the models like we do here. I've done it in black acrylic, a satin finish. Now, so a lot of people swear by going over a gloss coat, and it depends on what type of Alclad you use and various bits and pieces. If you're going to go for a normal metal finish looking aircraft, a satin coat or a flat coat, putting it over the top will be fine. If you want it to look like a mirror and look like a, perhaps one of the modern Mustangs when they're done as like a polished metal effect and things like that, then you are going to need a gloss coat. For this one, what we're going to use is the aircraft or airframe aluminium. What I've done is I've given the airbrush a good clean out, and also I've given it a complete blow through with some lacquer thinners, because obviously this isn't a lacquer based paint. Now the drawback to this is it smells quite a lot, and it shows up any bad bits on your model. Apart from that, it's wonderful stuff to work with. You get a little ball bearing in there which helps mix the paint, and the only thing is, whoops, as we've proved there, this stuff is very, very thin and does like to go everywhere when you're trying to pour it, which proves that one perfectly. Okay. Now, pressure wise, we're turning this, because this stuff is literally like water, we're turning this down to, we're about 12 psi now. We've got the 0.4 needle set in here. There's the paint coming through all okay. The only other thing I'm going to quickly do is grab a glove. Just to save me getting covered. Some people like to, there is obviously various things you can stick into your models to hold them steady when you're painting and that. Obviously I like to grab hold of them and use your hand. Okay, so we're going to start on the top, and we're going to give the entire model a coat of this airframe aluminium. So literally we're just misting it on. Nice light coats, constant pressure on the airbrush, and literally we're just passing it all over. And as you can see, it dries almost straight away, which is quite a nice bonus. Obviously when you're dealing with any other type of silvers, they take forever to dry. But there we go, that gives the thing, that's a 1mm colour cup now, has gone on one wing. So you think you do use a lot more. So what we're going to do now is fill this up a bit more. Nice generous amount there. Okay, and we'll switch to this other wing. We're just going back over the other side now. Now normally if you're using this stuff, I would recommend a respirator as well, because quite frankly it stinks. So we're just going to flip it over now, and we're going to do the underside. Remember your leading edges and your trailing edges. Just going back now, I'm working over areas where you can see it drying a little patchy. And there we go, that's another couple of cups full, so that's really about 3 mil we've used there. We're just cutting to air at the moment and blowing it all over. And as I say, it is the thing, it's dry and ready to touch. So we're just going to pop that down there. And remember to mix your little ball around there as you go. Okay, now we're going to make sure we've got all those trailing and leading edges all okay. Okay, coming back to air. Just pop that down a moment. I'm just going to check it. And as you can see, totally dry as we go. So we'll just hold it by the wing now. And now we can do the back half. Okay, we'll cut back to air. And there we go. One nice aluminium coloured aircraft. As I say, the good thing about this, obviously you can handle it, and now we can mask up and we can carry on, as we will do, for putting in the different shades and things like that as we go. Drawback to it is very, very strong smelling stuff. This is. I'm going to go off and have a break now and have a walk around the garden. But normally, as I say, you would need a respirator or something else when working with this stuff because it is very, very strong type of thing to work with. Okay, so the thing I've just done, literally just a second, I've just sprayed this with a bit of the aluminium, which is the dull aluminium. He's trying to get this off. Obviously the big thing with Alclad is it has a nasty habit of scratching, so you have to be a bit careful. I don't know if you can see that, but you get some nice tonal differences there. So we've got the shield there for the top of the gun bay. So all we'll do, we put it down. Now before I ever put masking tape near any of this stuff, straightforward onto the back of your hand, push it down, pull it up. The grease and the bits off your hand will just take the tackiness out of the actual tape itself, and you don't have to worry about it leaving behind marks and bits and pieces as you go. So just a quick little tip there. Many a time I've sprayed and ended up taking bits off, but if you use Tamiya tape, it's probably the less tackiest of them all, and then certainly it's one of the best for getting off without leaving any residue or any risk of peeling. Yeah, the nice thing about using alclads is you can spray an area like this without the risk of it going everywhere else. Because it does happen when you're using acrylics to spray. So that's that one, you can see that there. And then what you can do, you can go around the entire model and pick out any panels and bits and pieces you would like to be slightly a different colour. Now obviously you can check your references, you can just decide how you want to do it, whichever you want to do. Obviously aircraft did get replacement panels, they did weather at different times, so there's lots and lots of variables how you want to do your actual model. With your actual aluminium finish, but obviously if you've got a particular aircraft you're doing in mind, like this one, I'm going to do this as a warbird. It's not how it is now, although obviously it's available now. You can see it flying around the air show scene, probably a lot more shiny, but I'm going to do it as if it was back in the day. So I'm going to pick out various panels along here, everywhere, and just with a dull aluminium top and bottom, and randomise it somewhat just to give it a look as if it's, you know, the metal is well worn, it's got replacement parts. Obviously, you know, difference in aluminium skin versus bits of other types of metals on there will give you the breakup in it. And there we go. That's that one all finished. As I say, it is the beauty of alclads, the way you can quickly move on and you're not having to hang around as you are certainly with enamels or certainly with acrylics. These are very nice quick ways to do it. You can literally do it just as fast as we're doing it here. Don't know how much you can actually tell, obviously in these pictures it's very difficult because it's very glary, but as I say, I've been around and I've used a bit of artistic license and a few reference photos as well to work out obviously the difference in metal areas, the different tonal shades, various bits and pieces. So we're just trying to break it up and stop it looking like a bit of a silver brick. So we just pop this flap in here. There we go. Hope you can see that there. As I say, it's got some nice tonal changes. I've used the dull aluminium, the aircraft aluminium colour is the base colour, then all these shiny areas you can see, that's the dull aluminium. And then I've gone round a couple of areas underneath down here. I've used a bit of magnesium underneath the wings, just to give it that sort of, you know, heavy look. If we just pop the front engine block on, that should be slightly different shade as well. And there we go. Okay, so here we are with the P47. This has now had two hand-coated paints with a brush of the Future. Now we haven't airbrushed on the Future because you tend to find when it goes on top of alclad you get a speckly, a satin type finish. But as you can see on here, we've got quite a nice glossy, shiny finish still to it, which is going to be ideal for putting the decals on. Now, the thing I find with decals is the clear carrier film all around a decal, and let's face it, there's no way to really get rid of that unless you're going to trim it all. It shows up against the metallic surfaces, obviously on the Thunderbolt here, with the actual alclad. Now, I've played with it and you do lots of bits and pieces and you're trying to work out the best way of doing it. So this is sort of a new technique I'm going to do, is actually then brush paint it on. Two coats, they dried, they went on about an hour apart. That's all. So then what we're going to do now, we're going to do the green work and then we can then decal, and then we're going to get another further couple of coats by brush, and then I'll show you how to actually brush paint it on there. But as you can see, it's all very shiny, and the beauty about having with the, you know, the Future on there now is that it's protected. You don't have to worry about scratching the paint. I've got a tiny little scratch here on the wing, which isn't so much of a scratch, it's more of a scuff, where it's just gently scuffed the top of the surface. Now at any point I can go back with a little bit of alclad, just mask up obviously this area we've done a different shade here with, and then I can just blow that in just to take care of it. So what we're going to do next, we're going to put in this nice green stripe at the front. Now the nose section for the particular markings we're going to do is going to have a check right the way all over it, so it's going to be a checker face there. This has had 2 coats of Future over it as well, and then shortly what we're going to do, we're going to decal and get that in place and leave it to one side, because it's going to we're going to take perhaps 2, 3, 4 different coats of setting solution to get that decal to fit and conform. Okay, so we can all see I'm all masked up here. Obviously I'm not taking any chances, so we've got a mixture of kitchen roll and obviously it's just these middle areas here. So okay, what do we got? We've got a 0.4 needle thing in there running 20 psi, 043, which is Valero's version of olive drab, which is a nice greeny colour. Okay, we're just going to test our flow. Now, because we're going over a high gloss area, it's best to literally let this build up in its own time. So nice little dusty coats, and work your way around, because you find if you just blast away in here, what's going to happen is that it's going to pull and it's going to look horrible, because you're onto a very, very glossy surface. You could key this in almost by literally going around with a little bit of very fine, either a pad, a sponge or some paper, and just to key it in a little bit. But this surface will be very flat once it's done. It was the whole idea, so you don't get a glary finish off of the aircraft with the sun on it. Just running out of air now. Let's keep our air up. But say it's important to make sure you've got all your, your other bits. Perhaps you've got lying around. Keep them well out of the way when you're painting, because it's nothing worse than you get a little bit of overspray onto your model when you don't want it. And obviously, when you're spraying your model, as we're doing here, make sure that you keep your airflow 90 degrees to the surface, so you're not pushing it down through the power lines, and just every now and again back off, cut to air, and just give it a blow with just air, and then you come back with your paint and then go to your air, and it will dry it off, and that will stop it getting down underneath your tape, because no matter how good your tape is, if you flood the area, obviously it's then going to start to work its way under your masking tape. Now what I'm going to try and do here is just be a little bit clever, and this panel up here we've got is a slightly different colour. I'm going to almost try and work my way around it, so obviously it will have the flat green on the top here, the olive drab, but also I'm just trying to leave it in there a little bit so it retains a little bit of its colour. Now if that works good or not, that's a different matter, but that's what I'm trying to do, just so we don't lose this tonal change up here in the front. So literally working my way around it, going heavier in other areas than we are on that area, and vice versa. And now we've got a good coverage of paint all over this section, we can get a little bit more heavy with it. Just make sure you run your airbrush down that line of your tape, and then that way, if you have got any joins in there, that will take care of it. And there we go, we just dry this off now, we're just onto air. Drying this all over. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop this in the drying bay just for a few minutes so we can get it unmasked, because I need to get it unmasked so we can get the front on to make the lines all join up. Okay, so now we've got this totally masked up. Obviously a lot of people have trouble spraying invasion stripes, as they're known, the black and white stripes that you see underneath World War II aircraft. Now basically there's 2 ways to do it. You can either use the decals. Now the trouble is, if you use the decals, one, it's getting them to conform to complex shapes, which obviously, if you've got a decal in the first place, good setting solutions, it's always a problem. Secondly, is getting them all around fitting various bits and pieces can be a bit tricky. So in other ways, it's easier to spray it. Now the drawback from spraying it is obviously getting it to mask and all look square and various bits and pieces like that. Now the big thing with invasion stripes, people say, how do you get them square and various bits and pieces like that? The thing is with it, in reality, the aircraft were never square anyway. In fact, you see modern aircraft now who have replication, you know, replicating the real thing, have these fantastic, very sharp, very, you know, pinstripe, black and white stripes. Reality says in the war they literally had a bucket of black and white paint and did it with a brush, and they were a complete mess, but it did the job. So if you're going to do it, you know, as was in the war, don't worry about them being straight. If you want it to look very pretty, then make them straight. But the reality says they weren't. I've seen various photos of very old aircraft that look like a 4-year-old had done it. But it was done in the field and they did what they could, and that was the whole point to it. Obviously when they came back for depot and had various maintenance, they took their time with it, they could do it a little bit better. But certainly from the point of view of in-field painting, they're a bit of a mess. So we're going to need some white. So for this we're going to be using the Valero Model Air White. All I've done is 1/48 scale, round about, it's 9.999 odd millimeters, which makes them up to the stripe. So if you want to do it, 10mm Tamiya tape is basically about right, is the right width, certainly for the Thunderbolt. I've checked it against their own decals, and these stripes are actually 10mm across. So that's what we've done. We're going to put 10mm ones into this. Okay, so here we are. We've got these done out. Basically, we are 50mm from the inside to the outside. We've got some strips of our 10mm tape, and we've literally just gone along and made sure we're all okay and we're as square as we can possibly see it. So what we're going to do now, instead of putting in stripes of different colour, we're just going to put a blanket of white in there. Now unfortunately we're going to cover up all that lovely work we did earlier with the Alclads, but never mind. Okay, the white's quite thick, but we're still going to need it neat. Okay, same thing again, we're onto a very, very shiny surface, so just take your time. Okay, and we're just going to mist this on to start with. It's going to be a bit speckly. Hopefully you can see it there changing. I'm keeping the spray pattern 90 degrees to the surface. Let's move over to this side. Now, all depending on how you want it to be. Now, if you wanted to go for a weathered look, you could stop there and leave that somewhat thin and blotchy and it'll look great. If you're doing this as a modern warbird, as we were saying, as a sort of reproduction one, something like that, then obviously you want a nice, real heavy duty gloss coat. But I'm going to hold off, I'm going to leave it right there, because as it dries, you'll see it'll dry sort of a thinnish white, and that's what I'm after. I don't want it to look, you know, a thick black gloss white type of line, if you like. Okay, so just remember to turn it round 90 degrees. And there we go, just like that. Okay, I'm going to pop this in the drying bay for about 5 minutes, and then we can come back and have a look on it, check it's all okay. If it needs another coat, we can give it another coat. If it's looking good, we'll pop it back in the drying bay for about half an hour, and then obviously we can come back and do the black stripes. If you're not going to do it with the drying bay, or you've got a hairdryer, something like that, I would leave it a good amount of time. We want this to totally be dry. Because it's flat, you would think it would dry quite quick, but don't forget we've gone onto a very glossy surface underneath, you know, putting the Future on and we're onto Alclad as well, so it will take longer to dry than it normally does. Okay, so now we're going to get the stripes on. So what we need to do is mask off those white areas. I've already done this wing, so I'll show you what I've done. All you do, start with your 10mm tape and put it down, okay? Then what you might need to do, if you've got any little curvy areas, just get your knife in here and cut them down. Let's bring you in a little bit. Let's move this over so you can see it, okay? Because we need it all to conform to all the lumps and bumps and shapes or anything that's on there, like around geared doors. If you just make a little slit, just to make it lay down. Like that one just there. That way it all lays in and stays nice and flat. Now obviously your next one will come along, so all you do is put your tape and buff it up. So you're on those two, the wing edges, the leading edges. Okay, take your 10mm tape and then come along with your next one and butt it right up to the one you just put down. Okay, and then you should be able to peel that one off. Okay, and you just run your and push that one down. There again, we want to make sure it's all down nice and firm, so we're just going to cut just that leading edge there and the trailing edge of the door to make sure it all sticks down, and on that leading edge of the flap, just so it's all in there nice like that. Okay, and then obviously we'll put our next one here, butting up nice. Alright, then you take your next strip of tape. Okay, and we're going to place this one on that door, and if you've got it right, they should all marry up and touch each other's. Then you can take that first one away, and there again we're just going to put a little slip just in there to make that bite in. Now you're not totally out of it yet. What you want to do is then basically hold it up and have a good look and make sure it all looks straight. So have a look down each one, and if they're looking square, you're basically there. Now, as we said before, we're not looking for perfection here. If we wanted perfection, you could literally get your rulers out and you could mark it and do everything, but I'm doing it a bit like how it was in the field, and just trying to make it look good. So what we'll do, we just put some little bits of tape on the end ones just to cover up any gaps we may have. That will go like that. Then just check everything's all nicely snuggled down and pushed in, and you're all happy with it everywhere. Let's put a tiny bit more down on that one and on this one, just to make sure we don't get any bleed through there. Okay, then take your black. Okay. Good shake. Okay, this is going straight in the colour cut neat. Okay, quite a high air pressure again, same way as we did the white, if you like. Okay, okay, nice, light dusty. And just keep it 90 degrees to your stripes. And then you can get a little bit heavier. Once you've got some good paint on there, just remember to keep 90 degrees to it, and you'll keep your minimum overspray. Just remember to do insides of your little pylons and bits and pieces. And there we go, we're in there like that. So all we need to do now, if I just grab the hairdryer, okay, moment of truth. So basically, you can have a look now and see what you got. Now, just really, I'm rushing this. I'd like to leave this for a good half hour or so to dry first, but I'm sure you're itching to see it as much as I am. So if we just gently peel back some of this tape. Obviously Obviously we'll try not to scratch anything as we go. So obviously we've still got wet areas. And there we go, just like that.